Good. So, settling into a posture for a guided, reflective meditation, which could be for the time of full moon, as it is today, as we're doing this live, or tomorrow. It's coming up tomorrow, actually, and lunar eclipse. But it could also be completion of the week, completion of a period, a project, a period in time, a project, a season. So kind of coming into the midsummer season as well, the solstice in just under 3 weeks' time now. So marking those times of potential transition. And it's a good time to maybe review what's been happening in our lives, what we've been doing, anything that is nearing completion or is completion. We're ready to leave it behind, to move forwards, but also to appreciate something that might be completed or nearing completion. So the first thing we can do with our posture is to really settle down and maybe back. So that's easy when you're lying down, because you'll be settling on the ground with your back on the floor, and there is a sense of resting back. And if you're in a seated meditation posture, you can just make sure that you're not leaning forwards, and also that you're not sort of overly upright. So relaxing into the seat of your hips, your pelvis. If you're on a chair, you could make sure that the sacrum, the lower back is very close to the back of your chair. And maybe relaxing back into the back of your chair or your sofa. And we could turn our palms up as if we're ready to receive something or hold something in our hands, with the hands relaxed and the hands resting on the floor or on your legs. And we can become aware of our eyes and either close our eyes or lower our gaze away from the screen. It may sound a bit strange, but we can see if we can let our eyes kind of relax back. So even with our eyes closed, there can be a sense of taking our, with our eyes open, there can be a sense of taking our gaze inwards, letting our eyes rest back in the eye sockets. So we're not looking ahead, but we're kind of looking back. And a lot of people have mentioned having insights, making life changes, or intending to make life changes as soon as it becomes possible, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Life-changing event potentially for us, or a time to reflect more on what's important, who is important. Now we're allowed to meet more people. Who are the first people you'd want to meet? Or is it more important to keep shielding? So lots of aspects of these past nearly 3 months may have given rise to insight. We can kind of just let that play in our mind. Is there something that's become clear to you that's important in the last month or during the crisis? Maybe something that you really appreciate, something you're grateful for, something you might want to give thanks to, or someone even. And maybe we can also appreciate ourselves for getting this far, and everything we've managed to do or managed to not do over the last 10 weeks. And then there might be some insights, some learnings, some appreciations that will influence our future. Perhaps over the coming days, weeks, or months, or who knows, maybe even years to come. And if there's one thing that you could pick out that seems particularly poignant or important, it could be a gratitude, it could be an intention, it could be an insight. And then we can bear that in mind at different points in the class, which I will invite you to do, but to give ourselves some space to kind of hold that insight, intention, or gratitude. You might like to imagine with your hands, being aware of your hands and your palms up, that you can hold or receive whatever's come up as an important intention or reflection or learning. And then we can bring our hands to our heart center for a moment. So whatever is important, whatever we're really grateful for, whatever we want to remember, might start in our thoughts, in our memories, in images that come up. And then it's often has a sort of heart component, a feeling component, what matters to the heart. So a couple of breaths there, feeling the hands on our heart center. And then we can take our hands down to rest on our belly with the elbows on the floor if you're lying down, elbows relaxed by your side. Hands on the belly. Often there's also that gut feeling that might accompany something that we instinctively know that's important. And feeling our breath with our hands on our belly. And often if something um, is right or important, when we have a good embodied sense of ourselves, we might be able to feel that in our body. Something feels right in our gut, something feels right in our heart. And the practice we're going to do today kind of visits those areas in different ways. Lovely. And then letting our arms come to the floor. And if you've been sitting up, inviting you to come to lying down for the preparation for the moon salutation, which will be largely lying down initially in any case. And it should be quite simple to follow because it's mostly familiar movements if you come to these classes regularly for sure. So we're going to start lying on our back with our knees bent. And our arms out to the side. So there is again a kind of receptiveness in our lying down pose. The palms turned up. We can gently open our eyes now if your eyes have been closed to kind of let in the daylight. A little bit less bright than it has been. Nonetheless, the daytime, letting that in. And then we're going to rotate our arms. So on the exhale, we're going to roll our palms down to the floor. And on the inhale, rolling the palms up, following the pace of your own breathing. And you could slow down a little if you feel like slowing down. So part of a kind of reflective class would be to pause, to slow down a bit more. Usually we're able to notice more of what might normally be hidden from our awareness if we slow down and pause. So exhaling, rolling the arms so the palms touch the floor. Inhaling, rolling the arms backwards so the palms come up towards the ceiling. Leaving the arms to rest on the floor so they're still in that settling back mode. And then when you next turn your palms up, again pausing, perhaps with a sense of what we've received as a result of the lockdown. Or the past few weeks, or the past moon cycle. And then bringing our knees in towards our chest, bringing the knees in towards the chest. And for a couple of breaths on the exhale, hugging them a little bit closer. On the inhale, moving them away. There is a very gentle closing and opening, a small movement, still very much reclining back to the floor, to your back. And then keeping the right knee in towards you and stretching the left leg away from you along the floor, the heel stretching towards the end of your mat. And then changing sides a few times. You could breathe in as you change sides and breathe out as you extend the legs. Extending the right leg now. Breathing in, changing, extending the left leg. And this a few times. Sense of lengthening through the body. Front of the hips opening. And then if you like to make it a bit more strengthening, take care if you've got any back issues. You could keep the heel of the extended leg just above the floor. So that helps us to use our core a bit more. As we bring a bit more strength, effort into the postures today, we could also reflect back on in what ways might we have become stronger the past few weeks. What has strengthened us? And then bringing both knees in towards you again, plugging them in. If it feels okay for your neck, on an out breath now, you could bring your forehead towards your knees. And on the in breath, bringing it back down. If that's too strong for you, you've got some neck issues at the moment, you can go back to bringing the knees in towards you on an exhale and away from you on an inhale. Adding the head lift, if that feels okay, curling up into a little ball, coming back down. And making this the last one. And then on an out breath, doing this one leg at a time if you've got any back problems. Lowering our feet back to the floor. Again, a bit of core engagement at that point to stop the legs from moving too fast. And then we can stretch our legs out if that's comfortable, or you could keep your knees bent. See how it is for your lower back. Letting the legs relax, the hips opening up again. Gently taking our arms out to the side, maybe a bit more towards shoulder level if you've got space and it feels okay. And then we can bring the right hand to the forehead, letting it rest across the forehead. A bit as if you're taking your own temperature, putting your hand on your forehead. And there can be perhaps a sense of tenderness in that touch. Aware of our thinking mind, the power of our thinking mind, the human intelligence, the way we can think about stuff, reflect on stuff, and that being part of our understanding and wisdom. And then on an out breath, we can guide our head very gently to the right hand on the forehead, guiding our head to the right, and breathing in, bringing it back to the center. You could close your eyes. That feels okay. A sense of your head being held between the ground or the cushion and your hand, very gently rolling from side to side. Appreciating our thinking mind. So sometimes our mind's a bit overactive. If we worry too much, try to control things too much, get a bit much sometimes. But also a really important part of how we function in the world. So appreciating that. And then bringing our head back to the center, releasing the right arm down, and then taking the left hand across the forehead. And on the out breaths, guiding the head to the left and back to center on the in breaths. A sense of gently, tenderly, with appreciation, holding our head, resting our head, rolling our head. And then bringing our heads back to the center. And once again, having both arms out to the side, fairly wide, almost shoulder level. And then bending our knees for a bridge pose position. So the feet more or less below the knees. And then roll the spine up. Breathing out, breathing in the pose, breathing out, rolling back down, breathing in whilst resting. So suggesting coming up or starting to come up on an exhale, breathing in whilst you're in bridge, and then exhaling back down, inhaling whilst resting. So an exhale and an inhale to come up, as it were. And an exhale and an inhale to complete. And as always, you could keep this bridge low and small, or take it a little higher. Once again, feeling the strength in your body. So even with a small bridge, we can really have that sense of steady standing feet. And flexibility as well. There's usually a bit of a wobble in our bridge. the spine is able to roll. We've got this capacity to keep ourselves stable as we also roll with the punches of life, as a metaphor, hopefully. Perhaps appreciating ourselves, our body, our mind for our strengths. When you next roll back down, once again folding our legs in towards us, we can support the legs with the hands behind the knees, and then stretching the legs up, stretch the hamstrings, and the calves and the muscles in between. And we can bend and straighten a couple of times. And then keeping the legs raised, and feel free to keep the knees fairly bent. You can keep your hands kind of in support of the legs in some way, or rest them on the floor. We're going to exhale and let the feet go wide. So it's like a wide-legged forward bend, but we're doing it lying down. Breathing in, bringing the legs back together. Because we're lying down, it's easy to bend the knees. Inhaling, bringing the legs back. Exhaling, taking them apart. Noticing the stretch on the inner thighs as we go wide, and then contraction, the engagement as we come back. See if you can make that movement smooth. You might notice a little bit of juddering, and slow. Go slow, the muscles are doing a bit more work. And then when you next take your legs wider, you could create a little prop with your forearms and your hands, your elbows on the floor, supporting your legs. Again, bending your knees as much as feels helpful. To do a kind of a wide-legged forward bend and staying there. You're on your back. And then bending our knees fully, bringing the legs back together. And then lowering the feet to the floor one by one if looking after back issues. And then we can stretch through our whole body, stretching the heels towards the ends of the mat. If it feels nicer to point your toes, doing that. And you can stretch your arms up. You can take up some space. Really stretch out. Take a deep breath in and a full breath out. And then bringing the arms back, bending the knees again. And rolling onto one side. Maybe taking a breath or two on your side. And then coming up to sitting. So we'll come to standing to do some of the preparation for this version of the Salute to the Moon. And there's quite a few, and And sometimes I make up my own as well, my own sequences. These can be rather nice. So coming to mountain pose, I'm just adjusting my monitor screen so you can see you all. For some reason it's changed itself. There we go. So mountain pose, always a good place to start. That sense of balanced standing, centering our weight from left to right and the forwards and back. And that sense of being both connected to the earth, being rooted, and connected to the sky, being tall. And we'll do the moving cow face posture. So we're taking our hands behind our body if we can, or it might just be tapping the top of your shoulder. And if I turn around, it looks like this. Notice I'm not trying to get my hands together. I'm just warming up my shoulders at this point, and especially if you've got any shoulder issues. There might be a bit of creakiness, needing to warm them up a bit. You might feel this working your upper arm muscles, shoulder muscles, and your upper back muscles. And then we'll let the arms relax. And we'll slowly shrug the shoulders a few times. So breathing in, slowly shrugging up the shoulders towards the ears. Breathing out, slowly moving them down. So taking them through their up and down range. Again, seeing if you can make this movement smooth. It might feel a bit juddery. That's okay, just notice it. And perhaps there's a possibility of making it smoother. And then letting the arms release down. Then on an in-breath, we'll take our arms out to the side and up, keeping the palms down. And as we come back down, we can bend our knees, breathing in, going up. A bit like a wing movement of a big bird with a wide wingspan. And the next time we go up, we'll bring the arms up to shoulder level, extending outwards, and then turning the palms up, and then interlacing the arms above our head, creating a kind of a circle with your arms around your head, or a squircle. And then a side bend, so exhaling to one side, inhaling to the center, exhaling to the other side. And this is sometimes called the moon posture. There's different postures called moon posture. This is one of them. I guess it looks a bit like a crescent moon going into that side bending shape. you were mirroring me, we started by going to the right side and finishing by going to the left side, releasing the arms, and then we can go into a forward bend. And as we often do, we can imagine letting something go on that forward bend. Maybe something we're finished with, something we're done with, something completed, something to let go. So you can take a couple of breaths there. Perhaps with the intention of letting go or simply enjoying the forward bend stretch. And bending your knees to come up, especially if you have a back issue. Bringing yourself up with the strength of your legs. Excellent. And we'll take our legs wider apart. So making sure you feel stable in terms of what you've got on your feet or below your feet. I'm wearing my slipper socks. They've got those rubbery bits on the bottom. So they're quite good for non-slip. And just checking the position of our knees and our toes. If you bend your knees, do your knees go in the direction of your toes? So we're aligning the hip position with the knees and the feet, so there's no kind of contortion in the knees when we bend our knees. And then we take our pelvis from side to side. And we can take our arms out to the side with the palms up with a gentle reach from side to side. And then making those movements smaller until we arrive in the center. And then we can go down, block somewhere into a forward bend. You could use a bolster or blocks or books in front of you here to place your hands on, if that's helpful. So go into a forward bend and then do a little side to side as well, bending one knee and the other. You could also have your hands on a chair or something higher. I can tip my blocks this way. Make it a little easier on the hamstrings. And then coming back to the center, and if it feels okay, take a couple of breaths there. Again, maybe a sense of letting go. And bending our knees to come up to standing. And bringing the feet back together. We can turn the toes in and the heels out. So it's a bit unusual in yoga to do that. It's a slight internal hip rotation. And then bringing the palms together in the budding lotus gesture. So the thumbs are on the inside and there's a bit of space in my palms, between my palms. And then taking that to our heart center. And gently bowing the head, releasing the neck. So this is also called privacy posture. And it kind of resembles like a meditative, reflective way of being, embodies it. So again, perhaps bringing to mind what's important, what intentions you would like to bear in mind for the coming days, weeks, or months, or appreciating something we've learned. or something we've developed. And then we can let go of our arms, have a little bit of a shake out of the limbs. And we'll have an explore of this moon salute. So it starts with this privacy gesture. You can bring your feet together, bearing in mind what's important. And then we take that gesture behind us. So some of you will know this reverse prayer gesture. Looks like this. And of course, you could do something gentler, hands on your back, perhaps, or hands a bit higher and flat on your back. So kind of acknowledging what's behind us or what might be slightly hidden. And then releasing our arms and going into a normal forward bend again. So letting go, completion, bending our knees to come up, especially if you have back problems. And then bringing the hands back to the heart. We're going to step forwards with the left foot. So I'm going to mirror you. Left foot is associated with the moon side of the body. Finding our balance. And equal weight on the front and the back. And we're taking our arms up and kind of in line with the back leg. So I'll show you this way around. So not trying to get them straight up, but with this angle from the heel to the hands, more or less in one line. And then releasing that. And then turning our feet out to the side. So you're there, you're turning both of your feet to the right into this wide-legged stance again. Turn this way. And then into that wide-legged forward bend again. And then once to each side, bending the knee and coming back to center. Lovely. And then coming back up. And then turning your right foot out. Adjusting your left foot so you're in warrior facing the other way. And then taking our arms up again in this diagonal line. Releasing the arms and stepping back to mountain pose. And then taking the arms up past the midline, drawing up into a standing back bend as if we're receiving the moonlight. And then back to hands to the heart. Back to privacy pose. Lovely. So we'll go through that again. So bearing in mind what's important in this little contemplative posture. So our intention might be, of course, we can always be simply present with ourselves as we practice and our breathing and our body. And then taking our hands behind us in the reverse prayer or a modified version with the hands on our back, being aware of what's behind us. Releasing our arms, straightening the feet, and exhaling into a forward bend, letting go. Taking a deep breath in after a complete exhalation, and then the next exhalation, bending our knees, coming back up, bringing the hands back into the lotus gesture at the heart. And then stepping forwards with the left foot into a stable warrior. What's a stable warrior for you? Keeping your attention in your back heel as you take your arms forwards and up, and then being aware of the line from the back heel to the fingertips. And releasing our hands, turning our feet to the right, so you'll be sideways to the camera, to the screen rather, and then going forwards into your forward bend with wide legs. Exhale, bending the left knee. Inhale to the center. Exhale, bending the right knee. Inhale to the center. Coming up on an out breath. And then we're going to turn again to the left. So you might have your back to the screen for a moment, which is quite nice maybe to turn away. So now you're going to the right. So now your right foot will be forwards and your left foot behind. In that warrior with your arms forwards, your back heel to the floor. That's it, feeling the whole of the length of your body. And then releasing your arms, stepping your feet back together to the mountain pose. Fine to stay with your back to the screen, no problem. And then exhale into your forward bend once more, letting go. Bending your knees to come up on an exhale. And then breathing in, taking your arms up into a gentle back bend. And then completing back to mountain pose with the prayer gesture. You can turn your big toes in again. Take your head into that little bowed position. Our mind on intention or gratitude, perhaps both. Anything learnt, anything to take forwards. We can release our arms, taking our feet parallel again. And then coming down to all fours. Coming into a cat. And then on an out breath, arching the back up, and looking in towards the navel. Navel gazing, looking inwards, looking back. Breathing in, back to neutral. Next out breath, back bend cat, looking forwards. And back to neutral. And you can either repeat that, or you could come into a plank pose, just to have that sense of strength, stability, capacity to hold ourselves. In what ways have we become stronger over the past few weeks? And then bringing the knees down and coming into a child pose with your palms up. So make sure you can see my hands. So pose of the child, your hands kind of by the side of your head is probably a fairly comfortable place. And again, a receiving gesture, as well as a kind of surrendering acceptance to how it is. And then we can come back to all fours. Tuck our toes under and coming into downward dog if that's comfortable. So always do cat or stay in child pose. Staying in dog for a few breaths. If you're needing to do a bit of knee bending, walking dog, that's fine, of course. And letting go of the head, releasing the spine. Also having this upside down view, looking at the world upside down. Sometimes a contemplative, reflective practice really helps us to see things a little differently. And then we can come back to child pose, with the palms up. Completing the moon sequence there. Perhaps again with a sense of something being held in your hands, being received. And appreciating what that is, the learning, the clarity, the insight. And then we can turn our palms back down to the floor, come to kneeling or upright kneeling, stretching up, expanding our arms for a moment, noticing our breathing, and then take a moment to get ready for the relaxation, which you could also do as a seated practice. And this will be a short, fairly short relaxation practice. Do make sure you'll be warm and comfortable though. It's always important. So, once again, exploring the embodiment of settling back, pausing and stopping and resting. So the effect of being stopped in our tracks in some way. So it could happen in different ways. Sometimes it's something like the lockdown. It's stopped us doing certain things. It doesn't mean that we weren't busy in other ways, depending on what your lockdown, your personal circumstances are like. If you're home educating children, or you might still have had the same responsibilities in terms of work or caring for family, that might even have intensified in some ways. But it stopped us in our tracks, I think, for everybody in certain ways. We haven't been able to perhaps engage in the same distractions as usual. Going to the shops or getting a cappuccino somewhere. Different forms of entertainment had to be sought. And maybe there was much more time on your own, or much more time with your family. And sometimes it's being ill that stops us in our tracks or slows us down. Sometimes it's a big life change, expected or unexpected. Anything like that, that's a transition from one thing to something else. It can be quite disturbing, maybe initially hard to accept. A shock to the system might be hard to adapt. And then there's often some learning in it, something that's good about it, even though that might be hard to see initially. And we can often see it better if we do allow ourselves to slow down and notice and stop. And sometimes our habit might be to get even busier, to find something new to fill the time, some other distraction. And sometimes that's also a helpful and necessary survival technique. And perhaps within that busyness, there can be some time for reflection, some time to stop and smell the roses, some time to appreciate what's happening. And it often happens very naturally, and all we need to do is to stop. Maybe just for a few breaths at a time, one cup of tea at a time. A few moments in your gardening to stop and look around and smell the flowers. Stop the busyness. Notice how it is to stop now. Or be silent for a few moments. You can simply pause, listen inwards, listen outwards, What do you notice? And then to complete, bringing one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. Breathing out fully a few times invites a deeper in-breath. Feeling the aliveness in ourselves, the breath, the strength in the body. Intention of moving forwards into the future. Perhaps understanding a bit more about ourselves and what's important. Appreciating our own capacities to get through things, our own strengths. Which we can apply to any changes we want to make in the future. And to complete the practice, you might like to stretch again, maybe with another deep exhale and inhale. If you'd like a bit longer to rest, and you have time, of course, feel free. And if you'd like to get up and continue your day, just notice how your body might like to do that.